Well, hello, Nick here, and it is Thursday, April 18th, and I ran the Boston Marathon for the first time on Monday. So this is my post-race report. I'm going to quickly just kind of go through the build up to the marathon, and then talk about the race, and then just talk about the last few days and recovery and kind of the emotions and things that have been going on physically too. But a lot of excitement around this race, 2.5 years in the making for me to get to Boston, my 7th marathon, so it took 5 for me to qualify. So a lot of passion into this, and of course everyone knows how big the marathon is, the Boston Marathon is. So to mark that off my bucket list was a huge check mark. So going into the race, we flew out on Thursday prior to race day. Did some of the touristy stuff around Boston. My wife went along. My in-laws actually flew in from Florida. Plus, we had a group of local runners, 5 of us doing the marathon. So we had a lot of people we knew in Boston for this trip, which was exciting and made it a little bit easier to deal with all that hubbub and excitement just to be in Boston for the race. So, Saturday morning was to the expo, and that really kind of was the concrete in terms of understanding this was going to happen. And so I got my bib and then went down to the expo floor, and it was really exciting. And the runners everywhere, and just it was like a kid in a candy store. Buying $400 worth of Adidas stuff, then going into the expo and just walking around, just being part of that experience, and was incredible. A lot of energy, and Sunday kind of took the day off to rest. Watched a little bit of the Masters, watched Tiger Woods win, which was kind of fun. Just put my feet up and try to keep off my feet for a lot of the day. Then kind of got ready, got the clothes ready for the race. And up to the race this year, we didn't really know what the weather was going to be like. It was all over the place. 3 days before the race, they were talking like it might be as bad as 2018. As the day got closer, the weather didn't look so bad. The temperatures actually were climbing, and we were looking at somewhere in the 50s and 60s, some on and off rain showers, and most likely a south to southwest wind at about 10 to 15. So that was going to help push us along, which was good. So the weather I wasn't so concerned about that night before the race, but. And we were able to kind of get everything ready, set up, get ready to get up kind of early to take an Uber into downtown, because we stayed about 20 minutes out in an Airbnb with one of the guys, one of my friends I was running with. So he and his wife and I climb into the Uber at 5:45 on Monday morning and head into downtown Boston. And on the way in, we noticed that it was cloudy and a little breezy, but there was no rain. It had rained kind of on and off all night, so it was pretty wet outside. But we get into downtown Boston and I say our farewells to Rachel, who is my buddy's wife, and she had run it last year in awful conditions, and she's about 6 months pregnant right now. So just to get up and be out and about, and that was I have to give her some kudos for that. So. We're waiting for the buses, and we don't get on the kind of the first group once we get there. So we're kind of waiting outside, and that first group of buses finally pulls off, and we're kind of waiting for the next group to come in. And the rain starts to pick up just a little bit, sprinkle and turn in rain. So I hadn't put my poncho on yet, but I put my poncho on. And over the next 5 to 10 minutes, the rain continually increases, and just as the buses, pull up and we're able to load on, it kind of opens up. The rain starts coming down heavily. As we pull away, first of all, the inside of the bus is full of warm, bodies. So the inside of the bus is very humid, and even with some windows down, it was pretty sticky in there. But we head out and towards Hopkinton, and with the nasty weather, eventually we're on the expressway. We had to pull over to the side, and we had to wait there about 15 minutes because they didn't want us to get to Hopkinton and then not be able to unload us because of all the lightning and the gale force winds that were going on. Plus the rain was just coming down in sheets. So didn't have a phone with us, so we didn't have any idea radar-wise kind of what was going on, just hoping that by the time we got to Hopkinton that the weather was going to be better. And about 20, 25 minutes later, we pull in, and it did get better. So the rain had slowed down. Kind of as we got off the buses, it started to sprinkle a little bit, or it was into a sprinkle, I should say. Get into Athletes Village, wow, we're in wave 1, so not a ton of people there yet, but the people that had gotten there before us had claimed the tent space. And, we did our quick bathroom break. I had put some plastic shopping bags around my shoes to keep them dry / not muddy, because we had heard horror stories from 2018 about how messy the Athletes Village was. So my feet stayed relatively dry. They did get a little bit wet. I don't know how, through the shopping bags. Maybe there was a hole, but I had brought an extra pair of socks, so I wasn't too concerned about it. And I was wearing Saucony Kinvaras, which are pretty lightweight. There isn't a lot to them, so again, wasn't too worried about them getting waterlogged, which they really didn't anyway. But after our coffee and some water, we found a little spot. We had brought a couple garbage bags to sit on. So we found a little spot by a tent to sit on and kind of wait for wave 1 to get lined up. So wave 1 gets lined up. We head up through Hopkinton, which is really cool, little walk, about 0.7 miles up to the CVS. Get in and out, barely in time to get started in wave 1 because the bathroom, the porta pots were just completely inundated, and so we had to wait a little bit to do one more facility break. But we get out, and we're kind of heading up towards the start line, and my goal had been to break 3:30. My PR was to get into this race was 3 hours 52 seconds. So I, with my training schedule being a little lackluster this year, winter was tough in Illinois in terms of training outside. Plus I've had plantar fasciitis pretty much since September. It's been up and down, so I've struggled a lot with some of that. So I wasn't able to do much speed work or hill work. It was a lot of just endurance running and just making sure that essentially I could do the marathon and not have to walk half of it. So going in, I was kind of, a little bit conservative in terms of, hey, we had talked to many people that had run the race before. Don't go out too fast, don't go out too fast, don't go out too fast. You're downhill right away. And so, my buddy Clint and I were running together. We crossed the start line and we're off. And that downhill, first bit of downhill, there's no joke. I can see how easy it is to get lulled into really taking that too fast. And so the first few miles were so easy and effortless, and we're clicking off paces way faster than I really wanted to. We're 7:07 on the first mile or something, or the second mile. But I was also trying to start to soak up the whole experience, seeing people along the race course, and it's a little sparse early on, but there were still people out, and music was playing, and so just getting you a little pumped up. And one thing we started to do right away, a couple things we discussed in the early miles was water intake. And normally, I don't drink a ton of water early in a marathon, probably because a lot of the marathons I've done have been a little bit on the cooler side. And we kind of felt like, hey, this might get humid later, and we better drink. So he and I both drank quite a bit early on, a lot of water, and then also we were talking about our quads. And I had told him early on that I was talking to somebody that was in a workout class recently when I was telling him I was doing Boston, and he said he had done it years ago, and that his quads just were screaming by the end of the race. And I told my buddy Clint, well, I've never experienced that. I don't know what that's like. So I guess we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. So we're running along, and again, he and I are doing just fine together, running about a 7:15 pace as the course flattens out. I could start to feel, my body after about 8 or 9 miles. You start to feel the muscles a little bit, but nothing to worry about, just normal, kind of marathon stuff going on. So, we keep pushing along and drinking water, making sure we're doing our nutrition. I had GU, and so I was doing that about every 40 minutes or so, 45 minutes. And, we get through the halfway point fairly unscathed. Everything feels pretty decent. I know my buddy Clint had mentioned to me, hey, he might be going ahead of me at some point. He really had not trained at all for a marathon. So the fact that he was able to run with me for this amount of time just shows his athletic ability is pretty good. He had done CrossFit a lot, but he had stopped running a lot, maybe a couple days a week. He was running for the first few months of the year. So I had to give it to him, hand it to him to be able to run how he did. So we again, the crowds were incredible, through that first half. I remember finally getting into it, just wanted to smile a lot, smile, slap some kids' hands, slap some adult hands, just trying to soak it all in and take the energy from the crowd and put it into my race. And of course, I think probably the biggest part of that was going through Wellesley College, and you do hear those screams probably about a half mile, maybe quarter mile away, and as you run up that hill and crest it, and you see all the women on the right, cheering, yelling, screaming with their signs, and they're going like this for a kiss, or like this, or slap some hands. So my buddy Clint and I about slapped everybody's hands through there. It slowed down just a little bit. I think that cost us about 15 seconds for that mile, but it was worth it. And afterwards, it seemed like it went on for a while. And afterwards, we all we looked at each other and we're like, wow, that gave us some energy. That was pretty neat. So you kind of go downhill and you kind of go into Wellesley downtown area. And so we're, into mile 14 pretty soon, 15 clicks off. We start to go up some of these Newton hills. So we're going over the interstate up a hill. And, that's starting to get a little tough. Here we go. We kind of knew. I wasn't really sure exactly where the hill started, but about mile 16, 17-ish around there is when Clint, I kind of realized that he's not on my shoulder anymore and that he's falling back. So I'm on my own, kind of running my own race, and I didn't really know how to feel about that. It was weird to run like that long with somebody and then all of a sudden be on your own. I've run with a pace group in one marathon. It worked out really well. No pace groups here. So I was on my own to kind of pace myself the rest of the way. And actually, mile 18 and 19 went okay, little hills, but I kept pushing up the hills, trying to keep my pace relatively consistent, around that 7:15 or 7:20 pace, and I did. Until I hit Heartbreak Hill. There's a long sustained hill. I'm keeping my eye up on the traffic signal. Big hill. And then you crest that and I'm just beat, just exhausted. And it starts to creep in my mind that I might have to walk this thing at times. And I hate walking marathons. I've done it a couple times. It's awful. The hills, my legs were destroyed. My quads, I've never felt so much pain before in my quad. So obviously I didn't prepare for those hills. So I get through the hills and it's a walk run for the rest of the race. The sun has come out. It's gotten very humid and very hot for running after a sustained 2 hours of running. That sun's just beating down. I'd worn a hat for this race. I had already turned it backwards because I wasn't sure if it was cold. I wanted to have the hat. I almost tossed it a few times. But ended up just pouring water over it to keep me cool. So get through the Boston College area, walk, run, walk, run. A lot of positive, cheering from the crowd. You can do it, come on, yelling my bib number out, while I'm walking. So I pick it up, a lot of that. But a lot of that, I'm in my head, I've completely gone away from the crowds and I'm really just trying to concentrate. I got to finish this race. I got to finish strong. So, I take whatever I can. I run a quarter mile. I run a half mile. I tell myself, hey, just get to this point, and then you can walk for a little bit and then run again. And there are some rolling hills through this area, as you go down Beacon. And then you get to, mile 25 clicks off on me at like 8:40 something. I don't even know, maybe 8:30 something. And yikes. So we get to we're on Beacon and we got to go kind of down a ramp and then up a little ramp. And I'm thinking, oh boy, how am I going to do this? I walked up the ramp and we're so close. Here we are like a 1.2 or a little less, maybe about a mile from the finish. And what do I got left? Walk, run. See Hereford, kind of like walk a little bit on Hereford, and then I see Boylston, and I'm like, I gotta push hard. I gotta push really hard. So I get around the corner on Boylston. I'm gonna finish this thing. The crowd was unbelievable. The energy, the noise, I will never forget. And of course, I look ahead, and that finish line seems like it's forever away. 600 meters, so not quite a half mile, but pretty darn far. And I'm just focused on that. And by the time I get halfway there, the crowd noise has kind of, gone off and I'm not hearing that anymore. I'm just focused on getting to that finish line. So I got whatever I got left and I run and I finish and apparently I look kind of strong finishing, but I didn't feel that way at all. And I raised my arms up at the finish, and I did it. 3:17:56. I beat my goal. I was a little disappointed, mostly because I knew I could have done a little bit better. But with those hills, not being really prepared for that, I was just glad to be done. Sun was out. It was a little breezy. Kind of do that slow walk through the finish line, and I was okay. I know what it's like to be feeling after finishing a marathon. So get some water, a banana, get the finisher medal, yay! And then keep walking, get a picture, and then finally make to the family meet area, which is where I met my wife and her parents. So that was the race. Like I can't describe it. The energy along the course, the course itself, how difficult it was to finish. I'm just getting goosebumps talking about it right now. And of course I get done and we're getting all cleaned up and showered and everything like that. And I'm already thinking, well, I've already qualified for next year. Maybe we'll be back. I know the course now. I can do better. And so that was the race. And after the race, we did the food thing. I always like to kind of celebrate. I have a few drinks, or maybe more than a few. So that night, threw back a few beers. It's usually beer because that tends to kind of go through you a little more quickly than hard liquor or wine. But didn't get a ton of sleep that Monday night after the race because we had to get up and head to the airport. I did get up and I ran a 2.25 mile recovery run. I felt awful. My organs, like my stomach and liver, like almost felt bruised. The first mile, I almost turned around and walked back, but I kind of pushed through. And the area we were staying in was kind of hilly, so it was not the greatest, cool, kind of, a shakeout run. But got 2.25 in. In my experience, getting a short run in the day after a marathon has really helped my recovery. So I wanted to make sure to get that done this time and see if that would help. So. We left in and out of airports, got home that night about 6 o'clock, 5:30, and on Tuesday night. Yesterday, on Wednesday, I could barely walk down the stairs. It was really rough yesterday, just still very physically hurting, mostly just muscle fatigue in my legs, my quads, and my hamstrings. So, got some more rest, and then last night got a really good night's rest. Got up this morning, it's Thursday, I'm feeling quite a bit better. Food's been kind of all over the place. I've been trying to kind of eat somewhat healthy, but also trying to replenish some carbohydrates with some pasta. So, yesterday I kind of concentrated for lunch on having some good healthy stuff. And then of course last night we had a veggie sandwich and some tomato soup. And then, so I've been trying to not eat quite as much junk, to try to recover for this. I did it. I had a wonderful time. It exceeded my expectations. To all of you who want to run Boston, go for it. It's so worth it. The excitement, the energy, just being in Boston and getting the old, celebration jacket, the finisher medal, being part of that history, and then just being able to talk about it with other people that have run the race, or giving people advice about the course. I mean, you've done it. Now, I didn't do my best. But what I read after the marathon, I didn't realize about the unicorn associated with the Boston Marathon, which is, a unicorn is basically a mythological creature, and you're never going to catch it. You're always going to chase it, but you're never going to catch it. And so, my goals are were good, and the symbolism with the unicorn and the Boston Marathon being, I think, a more challenging marathon course-wise than I've run before. It definitely holds true to be chasing that unicorn. I chased the unicorn, and it outran me hard in Boston this time. So, we'll see about next year. I mean, right now it sounds great. It's a pretty expensive trip out there, especially when you go out Thursday through Tuesday. I don't think we'd be able to do that again, but an experience I'll never forget the rest of my life, and I hope to do it again someday, if it's next year or 5 years from now. I'm going to be 40 this year, so the window is still have a lot of opportunities, down the road in the next few years to get in, especially as the time gets a little bit easier for me, and I understand kind of what the constraints are to get in. So one down, and who knows how many more to go. Up next for me is the New York City Marathon in November. So I've got 2 big marathons this year. I'm still kind of trying to strategize about what to do for that race. We'll see. To run it hard, train hard, run hard, maybe to try to PR, or potentially just go out and run it for fun and try to keep healthy. Right now, my goal is to rest for another day, maybe start running a little bit, maybe over the weekend, see how I feel, but maybe a little biking. But recovery wise, I've got to get my foot in order. I've got a lot of races coming up this summer. They're a lot shorter races, so really now it's back to speed training and a little bit of hill work, and then I'll start getting ready for New York in the summer, late in the summer. So thanks for checking this out, and please let me know if you have any comments or questions, and good luck to all of you who want to go out and run Boston someday. You can do it. Just takes hard work and determination, and you can have one of these awesome finisher medals as well. See ya. Take care, and happy running.